Hello, I'm Pip Courtney. Welcome to A Taste of Landline.
This is a really refined art today. You can hardly see a leaf had been moved on the vine.
Every chef I talk to are blown away by these different tubers and like, where can we get them?
They like pink because they're very romantic.
Hello, I'm Fiona Breen. Rising summer temperatures in Australia's traditional wine regions have prompted some of the country's oldest and biggest winemaking families to uproot and expand south. The wine industry's race to Tasmania is well and truly underway. Millions are being spent on new vineyards, and the island state's grapes are fetching prices 5 times that of mainland grapes. Brown Brothers is in the middle of its 6th vintage at its Hazards vineyard, overlooking Tasmania's spectacular Freycinet Peninsula. The mechanical harvester is working the rows of Pinot Noir vines. It's an eerie sight in the early morning light. There's 170 hectares of vines at this vineyard, and while the weather is fine and still, the harvester is operating most nights, shaking the Pinot Noir grapes off the bunches as it goes.
We harvest everything at night because night temperatures, get down to about 6, 7, 8 degrees. That's much cooler, and that greatly reduces any oxidisation of the berries.
The grapes are then transported by truck 2 hours to the Brown Brothers' second Tasmanian site in the north, Tamer Ridge.
Fiona, it's a lovely time of the year to be in the vineyard when the grapes are ripe like this, because you can pick a grape and you can taste the grapes off the vine and you can get a real indication of the quality of the wine it's going to produce. You can taste the acids, you can taste the sort of berry flavours, and you almost get that black currant character that you so much want in a good Pinot Noir.
For company chief Ross Brown, the newest acquisition is a favourite. Not only does it give the company a secure supply of cool climate grapes, it overlooks one of Tasmania's best fishing grounds, a perfect combination for this lover of the outdoors.
Judy loves fishing as well, so it's pretty well known that, in fact, when we bought the property down here, there was a rumour going around that it was Ross's fishing exploits and the vineyard was second, but not quite true.
It might not be true, but Ross and Judy Brown are regular visitors, and when they're on site, the boat is always on the trailer, hooked up to the car and ready to go. From vineyard to boat ramp, it's only a 30-minute drive.
We don't get many days as still as this. The old saying, in early, out early, doesn't even matter today because it looks like it's going to be pretty still all day. But, what a beautiful spot. I just think these mountains here are just amazing. Every time they come down here, they're a different colour. It's just amazing.
This Brown Brothers move to Tasmania is part of a well-thought-out company strategy. A couple of years ago, the business looked at future risks and decided climate change was the biggest threat. They'd had 10 years of severe drought in Victoria, and it was affecting their cool climate wines.
Our focus has always been on cool climate. In Victoria, while it's warm, we're up in the mountains getting up towards the snow country, and that's about as cool as it gets on the mainland. And yet we're still being pressured by warming climate conditions. Every year we find the fruit is getting ripe a couple of weeks earlier every year. And so we wanted to find a cooler site. We looked throughout Victoria and finished up in Tasmania, and that's been the success story for us.
The Hazards Vineyard is Brown Brothers' buffer against climate change. Its grapes ripen 3 to 4 weeks later than their mainland grapes.
The best flavour in grapes is when they ripen slowly and take the longest part of the summer to get ripe. The flavours are more concentrated, you get a more intense flavour, and that's what Tasmanian fruit is all about, is complexity and flavour.
The Browns are one of Australia's oldest families of wine, but they're also one of its most innovative, and their decision to expand into Tasmania has been on the mark. Studies have confirmed that wine grapes are ripening between 1 and 2 days earlier each year due to a warming climate. The research has also found a handful of regions are experiencing shorter vintages. Red grapes are ready for harvest at the same time as white grape varieties. It throws everything out of schedule. Traditionally, white grapes ripen first and are crushed first, and the red grapes 2 to 3 weeks later.
But now, often, as it's happened this year, a lot of them all come in together, and it creates great pressure on the infrastructure of the winery because you've only got so much stainless steel fermenters, and you've either got to move them out quicker or you've got to leave grapes in the vineyard perhaps longer than you would like to leave them there.
Warm springs and hot summers can affect grape quality and produce lower quality, more alcoholic wine. The changes are prompting wine producers to look at different grape varieties that ripen later in the season. Those with money, like Brown Brothers, are making big and costly changes. They snapped up their Tasmanian portfolio from the forest company Guns just before its much publicised collapse.
Where people, particularly the corporates, have multiple vineyards, you can, if you've got the facility and the resources, you can move to cooler areas. When there has been this race to Tasmania in this thing, Brown Brothers have done that. Treasury have done that, the old Hardies has done that, and even in Victoria we have some very well-known wineries that have set to establish vineyards further up the hill.
Demand for Tasmania's cool climate grapes is increasing year by year. Tons and tons are being trucked across Bass Strait to interstate winemakers. In fact, demand is outstripping supply, and the big companies are willing to pay top dollar.
The national average across all varieties is around $450 per tonne. In Tasmania, our average is around $2,500 per tonne. So you can see there's a very significant increase, and that really is reflective of the varieties we're producing here, but also the quality and the demand that we've been able to grow.
We are kind of the positive story in an Australian wine industry which may not be quite so positive in other wine growing areas.
Jennifer Doyle manages the new 40-hectare parish vineyard owned by the Barossa winemaking family, the Hill Smiths.
We have a beautiful long ripening season which helps to develop the delicate flavours for sparkling wine.
The popular Jantz Sparkling is their signature Tasmanian product, and it's still a good performer.
Jantz is a growing brand, and at this stage we can't produce enough to feed that brand.
Wine made from Tasmanian grapes is barely a trickle on the national scene, but it's having an impact, and those with vines in the ground couldn't be happier.
Well, I wouldn't be anywhere else. And put my money where my mouth is. This is where we've sort of planted grapes for ourselves. I make wine right across the country, but for me, Tasmania just has that extra sort of special intensity of flavour that I love, and it's Pinot Noir is my favourite variety, so that's what I'm making down here.
Interestingly enough, you don't harvest cocoa from the size of the fruit, you harvest it from the colour.
You say the word chocolate to somebody and immediately, their eyes kind of light up. These look and smell gorgeous. Beautiful. Bit of salad, looks fantastic.
G'day, I'm Sean Murphy. Australia has an abundance of native root vegetables that have sustained Indigenous communities for thousands of years. Surprisingly though, even after more than 200 years of European settlement, few, if any, have been domesticated and marketed to the mainstream. That could be about to change though, with two promising varieties in Western Australia now exciting the food industry and offering new opportunities for Aboriginal-run farms. Jeff Woodall's neighbours reckon he has the worst farm in the district at Arthur River in the Great Southern region of Western Australia, and he chose the worst soil on the farm to grow this vegetable crop.
That's where we've sort of focused our cultivation work, is on those sort of poor sandy soils, which are pretty typical here in WA.
He's a native plant agronomist, and over the last 15 years he's looked at 200 different tubers or root vegetables commonly found in southern WA.
So the aim was to sort of screen those 200 species for potential new vegetable crops, and of those 200 species, there were 2 or 3 that looked as though they had some commercial potential.
One of the most promising crops is the yolk, or bush carrot. The yolk is a perennial species, so it's a low-cost crop once it's established. And importantly, Jeff Woodall says, it's a hit with the food industry.
I had a lot to do with the food industry to start with, and they pretty much said that they wanted things that were pleasant to eat. They didn't want to pay truffle prices for these native vegetables. They wanted them to be realistically priced. So the crop has to produce lots of tubers in a reasonable sort of time frame and have some sort of desirable horticultural attributes. The last sort of 18 months has been a real turning point for the research and the development work, in that we're starting to have some product available for people, chefs, to access and to use, not just as a garnish but as a real vegetable.
Although we do cook this and put it on the coals, I prefer it raw. So we just shave it and just keep it pretty simple so that you actually get a lot of the flavour from this. You definitely get like that hint of carrot. It's also slightly herbaceous, like a light, dill. And then you get just a touch of eucalyptus at the end.
Paul Isco is the chef behind Further Foods, a pop-up restaurant venture turning bush tucker into fine dining.
So you're not going to find beef, pork, chicken, tomatoes, carrots on our menu. It's going to be yolk, cooloo, bloodroot, emu, kangaroo, marron, grubs, ants, those kind of things.
Further's chefs have taken their mobile kitchen to a range of exotic locations around WA. Today they're in Cranbrook in an old shearing shed at Dowreen Farm. They're making lunch at a field day for Indigenous landholders hoping to grow yolks and cooloo as part of a new business venture.
We've just got some kangaroo leg going on the plate now. We have some pickled yolk, some roasted yolk and some cooloo, finishing off with some damper and smoked butter.
What do you got here?
It's kangaroo damper.
Indigenous landholders from Noongar communities across southern WA are taking the first steps towards forming a collective to grow and market the new vegetables. And to do that, Aboriginal landholders are targeting the fine food industry.
For me, it's fantastic because you don't need to do a lot to it to make it taste amazing.
Yeah, I believe so. It's actually very nice. When it goes to your palate, you got an explosion of flavours that goes into it.
Yeah.
Vincenzo Velletri is a chef and promoter of Slow Foods Australia.
And we do have some...
Well, the thing is that we're looking at traditional food, and definitely Aboriginal food and bush tucker is a traditional food. Of course, we probably today's we don't look at the way that they were eating under 200 years ago, so I can see the evolvement of that. But also what is important for us is to keep the food online, so to keep the food, because with the time this food is disappearing if nobody is going to look at it. So what we do, we make the food stays on the market by getting people to try the food, eat the food.
We've got 200 kilos of that. We can just...
Dale Tilbrook has been sourcing and selling bush foods for 15 years.
It's huge potential, and the time is absolutely right now because we have a lot of interest both locally and internationally in people experiencing local food produced by Aboriginal people. I would love to be able to have bush tucker barbecues and serve yolk or kulyu or some of our other different foods from here in the southwest. A bit difficult at the moment.
I think there's a great opportunity for Indigenous communities to be growing these or harvesting them, because every chef I talk to or people who come to our dinners are blown away by these, different tubers, and like, where can we get them?
$3.54, $3.56. More land. I'm at $3.20. I'm at $3.22. 20. I'm at $3.20. All done at $3.82. Here goes. $3.82 goes. I'm at $3.32. I'm at $32. I'm at $4. I'm at $34. I'm at $36.
You've only got a short amount of time for each lot to get all these things through, so you have to be on top of everything.
My father and his father was an auctioneer, so it runs pretty deep in the family, yeah.
Australia has a new and somewhat unlikely must-see tourism hotspot. Lake Tyrrell, a large salt lake in northern Victoria, has brilliant shades of pink, and photos of it have gone viral on websites in China. Horsham-based rural reporter Danielle Grindlay has more.
Speckled among vast wheat paddocks is the Mallee town of Sea Lake. About 400 kilometres from Melbourne, it's one of Victoria's most isolated communities. Since it was established, Sea Lake has been defined by the grain harvest. But it's now on the verge of a sea change. About 18 months ago, some new faces started to arrive.
Asian people, they love pink lakes. They love pink because they're very romantic. I want to see something different. Yeah, and my friend, she loves pink stuff.
The attraction, lauded on a growing number of Chinese websites as the best thing to see in Australia, is a shallow, salt-crusted depression 6 k's out of town, Lake Tyrrell.
Since the Chinese have been coming up here, I think it's awakened the locals as to what a treasure we've got here. But being local, it's just the lake.
They keep asking me, why are you here? I said, you don't know that's a beautiful sight on the Sea Lake?
Melbourne-based tour guide Freddie Huang has based his business around Sea Lake. Lake Tyrrell is his signature tour in Victoria.
Everything is Mother Nature's, nothing is man-made. I mean, very, very wild. Then you got nothing but, flies, kangaroos, that sort of like a wild nature stuff. There's not many places in the world have these kind of attractions to see it.
Although no one in Sea Lake really knows who posted the first one, Photos of the lake shared by Asian tourists have gone viral on travel blogs, social media sites and websites. A free marketing campaign a travel agent couldn't dream up.
If I can take some photos, share on WeChat and some Facebook and some Chinese net social work, and they just so jealous, and they just said, "Oh, Australia is amazing." It's like a movie.
In the right conditions at the right time of day, Lake Tyrrell acts like a mirror, and everyone wants a photo of walking on the clouds. A photo on the sky mirror is one thing, but the real magic happens when the sun goes down.
Australia and New Zealand are probably two of the best places in the world to see the night sky, because we've got lots of open, wide open spaces, lots of beautiful places like this, and lots of big sky. We have great climate, you know, there's clear skies in our country. And I'm not surprised to see tourists of any nationality coming here, Asian or European or whatever. I know for a fact that photographers in Europe, particularly Europe, are very jealous of our night skies.
The lake is also hugely significant to Australia's Indigenous history. In 1847, one of the region's first pastoralists recorded astronomy dreaming stories, shared with him by the local Burong clan. They are the first papers ever published about how Indigenous Australians viewed the night sky.
We've got possums in the sky, we've got spirits in the sky, we've got birds in the sky, we've got serpents in the sky, we've got emus in the sky. So something that is very uniquely Australian. The Burong name Tyrrell actually means sky, so if you're out there on a dark night and there's a little bit of water in the lake, you can actually stand in the lake and you actually see stars above you and stars being reflected below you. I've had astronomers I've taken out there and elsewhere in South Australia where I'm from, and they've just stood there in absolute awe.
In China, the building everywhere, and there's no way you can see, so many stars. I say, oh my God.
With photos like these being spread across the globe, Paul Curnow says Sea Lake should be setting itself up for a flood of tourists.
I think the potential's huge. It's just a matter of you need people that are trained up to know what they're looking at the night sky. Obviously, you need people with experience in running tours generally. So really the potential is, the sky's the limit, quite literally.
Although the stars appear to be aligned, if Sea Lake is to capitalise on this opportunity, it will first have to overcome some enormous challenges. The backdrop to all of this is a town in sharp decline. Like so many rural communities across Australia, Sea Lake was once a bustling centre, but slowly the banks and the barbers left. The butcher shut up shop. Today you won't even find a bakery. And that domino effect continues on. Newsagent Keva Lloyd is in the process of clearing out, closing a chapter on a 103-year-old family business.
All our family have left town, so we've moved to Bendigo.
Keva Lloyd's grandfather opened it in 1914, and he's been behind the counter for 47 years. He's given up hope of passing the baton on to a new family. But the baffling influx of Asian tourists is forcing the community to see a sparkle in the things even they have taken for granted. Like the rooster who crossed back and forth the main street at will. Once a pesky nuisance forcing cars to stop and wait, the grumpy cock became a protected tourist attraction. And seen through new eyes, that salt-crusted depression out the road could be the lifeline this drought-stricken town needs.
I think if they hadn't started coming, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you now.
I think we would have been closed probably 12 months ago. They're not a, say, drinking society like Australians are, but from accommodation, meals, and a little bit of grog, it's helped keep me going for sure. Mid-July through August, September into October, that's definitely my peak for them. The winter months where you get the water on the lake and good reflections of the stars, etc.
Helen Geary planned to spend a few weeks renovating her new slow-rolling motel on the outskirts of Sea Lake. Instead, she and her husband hit the ground running.
We've been working 12-hour days trying to get renovated, sorted, and taking these phone calls and email inquiries from the Chinese people that are booking. Some of them are booking groups of 20 and 30 at a time. Some of them are booking just 2 or 3 people in a room or in a night. But it certainly has been very, very busy.
I've spent some time out here today with 2 young Chinese girls. Just to see their excitement and exuberance, it's been, it's a breath of fresh air. It's great to watch. And I'm sure the people from the town could gain a lot from coming out here and seeing them enjoy it so much, you know.
Well, that's the program. We hope you enjoyed it. Next week, some mutton.
The most exciting thing is when you go to a restaurant and you see your product. That's probably the highlight of my farming life, I reckon.
Pomegranates.
All those seeds out, nice and quick.
And Maremma guardian dogs. I'll see you then for those stories in another Taste of Landline. Bye for now.